Campbell, most listening now would applaud what you've said now. It sounds almost historic to me, this stance you're taking against the judiciary. In my time, I can't think of a Premier taking on the judiciary like that. We talk about the separation of... I'll get to the point and give you plenty of time. We've got this separation of powers and they're expecting you to stay out of their realm, and yet we have the magistrate saying that politicians who believe in mandatory sentences, meaning you and others, have rocks in their head, and I'm just wondering where this separation of powers lies. Is it only you who's meant to have it, or them as well?
Let me talk about my position on separation of powers. Okay, so just to go back to first principles, and it is more an American thing, I should say. There's the executive, so I'm a member of the executive. There's the legislature, so by virtue of the fact of being an MP, I'm a member of the legislature and we make the laws. And then there are the courts. Now, my understanding very clearly is ultimately Parliament is supreme, because Parliament is the manifestation of the will of the people. The laws that were passed recently in Parliament were passed by the democratically elected people of this state. And in 18 months' time, the people of Queensland get an opportunity to say, well, we didn't like those laws and we can get rid of them. And that is ultimately the will of the people. In contrast, we have the courts who are appointed by the government, who are then meant to independently assess, review the cases before them, use the laws on the books and make decisions. It would be absolutely inappropriate for us to interfere in the workings of a specific court case. That's where the separation of powers come in. I don't tell judges what to do. Neither does the Attorney-General, nor are we now. What we're saying is the community has said enough's enough, they're not being protected, and we're saying here are a new set of laws to try and protect Queenslanders. If Queenslanders don't like it, they'll vote us out. And that, there is nothing sinister about that. If these are bad laws, Queenslanders will throw us out of office. I mean, there's also been some hysteria about the bikie laws, and that's self-serving because that's people who are trying to basically, I think, fight the bikies' corner, the criminal gang's corner. The suggestions about, the library club or the book club are going to be sort of deemed to be some violent association. Absolute baloney. How long would my team be in government if we allowed that sort of ridiculous situation to occur?
Campbell,
it's nonsense.
For some older Queenslanders, it marks a return to the dark days of the Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen era and its police abuses. During the famous Fitzgerald inquiry into police corruption, the Queensland Premier famously struggled to explain the separation of powers between the executive branch of government and the judiciary.
What do you understand by the doctrine of the separation of powers under the Westminster system? Of the Westminster system. The doctrine of the separation of powers under the Westminster system.
No, I don't quite know what you're driving at. The document.
Last week, Campbell Newman gave his own unique take on the separation of powers, saying it was more of an American thing.
Well, it's consistent with his insight into these matters generally, isn't it? I mean, it's an appalling misstatement or misunderstanding of that concept. It's concerning that a person in his position would be so limited or confined in his analysis of what the system of justice should be like.
Tony Fitzgerald is one of the most respected legal minds in the country. Today he broke his normally measured tone to attack today's government's approach.
I urge the Premier and his supporters not to treat the community as fools. The administration of criminal justice is not a political plaything or a suitable area for political grandstanding. Considered law reform is unlikely to benefit from a publicity blitz of self-praise or silly ideas. It is astonishingly short-sighted for a government to attack a judiciary in a bid to foster redneck support.
The legal criticism isn't worrying Campbell Newman. Clearly sensing he's onto a political winner, the Premier again vowed to get tough on bikies and compared the government's laws to the Fitzgerald war on corruption.
A fearless individual cleanse our state of these bad things, and that is what must happen today.
Andrew Bowe says the only comparison is draconian laws.
I'm old enough to remember the trails of that behaviour and the difficulties that caused for many citizens and innocent people within the community. When these laws get interpreted as they roll out and they get applied by police as they must against all people, you will find that there will be increased instances of injustices, and that is what I fear.